So on October 19th, productivity YouTuber Ali Abdaal started a thread of productivity tips, starting with the following tweet. In 5 years of YouTube, the most common question I still get from my viewers is, how are you so productive? So here's a thread of 15 actionable tips that help me do more of the things that matter to me without burning out. Thread and needle emoji. I'm not going to do the same thing that everyone else does when they are talking about AI, which is that they then do some kind of intro that turns out to have been written by AI, and then they go, haha, gotcha, and AI wrote this. I'm just going to skip right to it. So on October 20th, Ali then followed up his initial thread with the revelation that that thread had in fact been written entirely by AI, and also that it was one of his most successful threads of all time, with a crap ton of impressions and engagements and all that. Now, I want to admit that I am probably a lot more critical of AI than a lot of the people out there that I see, and I want to talk about why it is that AI is probably not going to take away your job just yet. I'd also like to point out that I have nothing but respect for Ali, and I am not here to, rag on him specifically. I think that I have seen a lot of other YouTubers who have been talking about this subject in a way that is maybe a little bit not very nuanced, to say the least, and maybe a little bit overly hyped and a little bit too much praise and so on. So he is certainly not the only person doing this, and certainly I'm not blaming him for this, but I do think that this is a very nice illustrative example of kind of the issues with AI and how we tend to think about it. So obviously ChatGPT came out recently, and that is basically the first time that there has been a very publicly available, easy to use AI system that can do basically anything that you want. Previously, of course, we had things like chatbots that would very quickly get very racist, or that would just basically spit out nonsense a lot of the time. And so ChatGPT was the first time that someone could plug something into a model and basically get a response that seemed very real out of it. Something where you could ask it a question and it would give you an answer that seems correct. Likewise, AI portraits have been making the rounds recently, and everyone's getting very excited about all kinds of prompts that they put into AI to get all kinds of cool portraits out of it. There have been people, paying to get AI portraits of themselves based on a few images that they give it, and so on. This has sparked a lot of discussion, and I think that, basically there's been a lot of discussion about how this is potentially going to take over things like social media. Obviously, there are a lot of folks who, for their jobs or for things that are related to their jobs, like myself, they create content on social media, and then basically that helps them get followers, or that helps them develop a recognition or a brand, and then that helps them get clients or sell products or whatever the case is. And of course, that is a lot of effort, but it is something that could potentially be done away with by AI if you could just ask an AI to come up with, for example, a thread of tweets about productivity or fitness or whatever your niche is. I did see a guy in a fitness group, for example, basically go to ChatGPT and he said, hey, can you write me a workout program for a person with these basic stats? And it popped out a program. Now, I wouldn't say it was a very good program, and it was very generic and boring, and it is what it is. And I think that this is probably really the heart of the matter. I also talked to recently, for example, a game designer who said she was very excited about this, and she was like, yeah, I could even have it make loot boxes for me in this video game that I'm designing. So what I did was I said, hey, could you pop out some stats for, what ratios and what the stats are going to be for these loot boxes? And she said, and actually none of it was usable, but it was very exciting that it could do that. And I think that that is the most illustrative example that I have, really seen so far. Is there's a lot of times that it just makes stuff that is not useful, but everyone's very excited about pretending that it could be useful or that it should be useful, and so on. There have been, of course, a lot of funny viral tweets where people ask the ChatGPT very simple questions, and it gives them pretty obviously false answers, where it's things like, hey, which number is bigger? And then it tells you the smaller number is the bigger one, and it says it's bigger because it's greater in size, even though that's clearly not true. I think there was also a very funny one where basically somebody went to ChatGPT and said, hey, let's play a game. And ChatGPT said, okay, let's play 2 truths and a lie, which is a game where you provide 3 factual statements And then basically, two of them are correct and one of them is incorrect. And you try and guess which one is the incorrect one about that person or whatever the case is in that situation. And of course, the ChatGPT spat out 3 facts. And the person said, okay, this one is incorrect. And ChatGPT said, okay, yes, you're right, that is incorrect. You win. And then the guy said, okay, but wait a second. The second one is also incorrect. And ChatGPT said, you got me. Yes, that's true. That one is also incorrect. And it's funny because initially it comes off like the computer was intentionally lying to you. Like the computer was saying, actually, we're playing 2 truths and a lie, but actually I give you 2 lies and a truth. Because I was lying to you, because it was funny. But I think that probably the better interpretation of this is not that the computer intentionally lied to you, but that it doesn't really actually know what's true and what's false. And it basically just produced what it thought were 3, sort of correct sounding things that went into that situation. And then when you then called it out on having created an incorrect situation afterwards, it rationalized that by saying like, oh yeah, I lied to you. Because that's what you do when someone says, hey, that's not correct. It doesn't have any other way to say like, oh yeah, I didn't know what the I was doing, and I just came up with 3 facts, and it turns out that they were not what I was trying to do. Like I was wrong. I was just wrong. I wasn't lying to you, I was just wrong. And that gets to the heart of the matter, which is that the AI doesn't actually know what's true and what's false. What it does is it just combs through a large amount of data, and then it produces what it thinks is a correct sounding answer to the prompt that is given it. And, again, it's correct sounding. That's the important thing, is it doesn't actually need to be true or false. It's not really capable of analyzing that. It just needs to be something that seems like a response to the question that you asked. And so it may be a correct response. It may be an incorrect response, but it is a response. It's a response that is consistent with the kinds of responses that it sees a question like this getting on the internet or wherever it, draws its data set from. So basically, it's just kind of saying, hey, if A equals B, then okay, A. So here is a thing that looks like it should be B. It doesn't assess the truth of things. It doesn't assess whether things are a good response to A or whatever the case is. It's just finding things that fit there because that's how it works. It's just a recognition model that's run on large amounts of data. And that means, for example, let's say that you have a topic that is particularly contentious. Let's say that you have something where you don't know factually whether, B is correct or C is correct or whatever the case is. Then it's going to produce something that is, maybe in line with what the prevailing belief is among people. But again, that could be completely incorrect. There could be 80 people saying the incorrect thing and 20 people saying the correct thing. And then it says, okay, well, I'm going to side with the 80% of people and produce the incorrect thing. Which is to say that, yes, it's flawed. And it's flawed in the way that humans are, maybe, in the sense that it's not going to produce you a superior result. It's going to produce you the crap result because humans are crap sometimes, and it's basically just regurgitating what humans say. But the point here is that the AI is not smart. It's not like coming up with the true answers. It's not, doing some kind of magic to figure out what's what. Again, it's just producing an answer that feels correct. And so, someone really described this as fluent bull. It's something where the AI is just capable of putting out stuff that, seems correct and, kind of nice. But then you take an expert who looks at it and they might say, oh, this is the most silly garbage I've ever seen. And that's basically how I feel about anything that I've asked the ChatGPT to do myself. I've put in a lot of prompts for it. I've said, hey, could you produce me a bunch of, tweets? Or, hey, rate me a highly viral, Instagram caption, whatever the case is. And yeah, sometimes... sometimes it produces something that's sort of believable, but a lot of the times it's just BS. Like, it's just lowest common denominator. Like, okay, this is like the most generic thing I've ever read. And it's generic because it's just taking from the generic stuff that other people write, and, there you go. And let's say, for example, that it's somehow going through your Instagram feed and it sees all the most viral captions. Well, maybe some of those things are viral because, the person has a lot of followers already, or, because they've just got a lot of automated bots doing automated actions or things like that. And so the end result is that, maybe there's no correlation between the thing that you write in the caption underneath the picture and how viral the thing actually ends up being, or very little of a correlation. And maybe the reason that things go viral is, not necessarily just because of the actual content of the thing, but also the person who is writing it, which is not something that the AI can quantify. And at the end of the day, the AI is just about pattern recognition. It's just basically about mashing existing stuff together in a way that, seems like it answers the question. It still requires humans to put in that raw material in terms of creating the posts that it's drawing from in the first place, and it still requires a human afterwards at the end to tell it whether it was right or not. It still requires a human to say, actually, this is good or this is bad, or, in the case of, say, for example, someone who is using this to create posts for their business or whatever, they might have to say, okay, I'm going to use these posts because these posts are good, but I'm not going to use these posts because they're bad. And so there's been a lot of discussion about AI, potentially revolutionizing things, like doing people's homework for them or writing their social media posts for them and that sort of thing. And to a certain extent, that is certainly true. But I also think that, that's maybe the stuff that was most susceptible to being automated anyway. If you look at, say, for example, like you go to LinkedIn, LinkedIn is very well known for like everyone producing sort of the exact same kinds of posts, all this hustle, grind set, business mentality, secret, tricks for managing your team or whatever. And then, LinkedIn gets a lot of heat for that. And, that's because it's a very specific kind of social network for a very specific kind of post, or a very specific kind of post as well. But let's say that we asked the AI to produce some more posts in the style of a LinkedIn post. Well, it's going to do that effectively because that's already the lowest common denominator stuff. It's not, terribly hard to produce very vague BS, sort of tips for productivity, or to produce very vague BS tips for, just how you develop your business or whatever the case is, because that's all just, stuff that is designed to be viral and designed to be shared. And it's not designed to be super nuanced or super intelligent. And again, this is not to, distinctly criticize Ali too much, but his thread, for example, of 15 very generic productivity tips, like I'm sure I could, basically do the exact same thing tomorrow and it wouldn't go anywhere near as viral as Ali's did. And that's because he already has an entire base of people to drive on. He has the fact that he's been making a very successful YouTube channel for years and that he has a pretty big following. And that means that he's going to get a lot more exposure for things regardless. And I also actually want to point out that it's not even really his biggest thread by far. So for example, on December 19th, he had a thread which basically got like 3 times the exposure. And I don't know, maybe an AI wrote that one as well. But again, like, who knows? It's ostensibly not an AI thread. He hasn't said if it's an AI thread or not. He also has plenty of other viral and semi-viral tweets. And again, that's because he's just a big internet personality with a big following, and he can tweet lots of things and get a lot of engagement on them. On December 20th, I tweeted the following, which is, in the year 2025, the hottest new genre of music is called Columbo Core. A heavily distorted sample of Columbo saying "just one more thing" plays, followed by the sickest beat drop you've ever heard. The crowd goes wild. This tweet went viral, and of course this is just a humble brag. I got exactly what I wanted for the holidays, which was a nice little viral tweet. How exciting for me. And, it didn't quite get the exact same level of exposure that Ali got on his, productivity tips thread, but it got pretty similar. And that's to say, I just fired that off because I was being silly, and I have a much smaller, following than him, and I had something that was silly, and I don't think a machine could have written that. Like, it was funny, it took me a few minutes, it just happened to be very viral, and, it is what it is. And so that's to say, at the end of the day, that, yes, the AI can do things. Is it going to make, genius level tweets that somehow just, shatter, heaven and earth and, give you 1 million followers instantly? No, it's not. It's not. It's just not going to do that. It's going to be good at putting out, easily digestible, sort of okay tweets, but that's not necessarily going to do anything if you don't already have a decently big following. The bigger problem is that, yes, AI will automate a lot of things, and it will just sort of cut the supports out from a lot of major industries. So unfortunately, I can't find the tweet anymore, but I did see a really good tweet at the time, which was basically just about what happened to the translation industry when Google Translate arrived on the scene. So when Google Translate and similar other machine translation services arrived, Basically the way that it works is that you pop in some text and it pops out a result. And much like the problems with the AI here that I have, described so far, there are times that it's just not correct. There are times where, it basically produces a correct seeming answer, but an absolutely incorrect one. It actually sometimes makes up translations for words. And this is a pretty well-known thing. And so the end result is that, you can feed something through there and it may or may not produce a good, usable result, depending on just how complicated the sentence is and so on. So the point of this is it's not good, but it didn't need to be good. And this person said basically in their tweet that basically overnight, it completely cut out all the money that you can make on the translation industry because people who used to pay a premium, amount of money for a premium service, which is, human translation, now had a option that cost $0 and was instantaneous. And so even though it was clearly much worse than a human paid translator, it basically meant that everyone would default to that zero cost instantaneous service first, and then maybe they might pay a human translator to go back and check it afterwards. But checking it is often, basically just completely retranslating the entire thing anyway, because again, the machine is not necessarily doing a great job. And so the end result is that you are basically doing more work for less money because now, of course, that the competition is, against a free machine, nobody wants to pay human level prices anymore. This is the kind of thing that is going to happen. Certain industries will just be, completely have their legs cut out from under them. Social media managers, copywriters. Yes, I don't know, maybe the guy that you paid to write your essays for you in college or whatever the case is. It is going to gut certain industries and certain niches or, significantly reduce the pay in such a way that it becomes unsustainable to continue doing that as a full-time business. However, I don't think that it is likely that AI is going to be completely capable of replacing a human in a wide sense anytime soon. You may use AI as a tool to supplement what you are already doing as a human. You may use it to automate certain tasks or, fractions of your business. And that may become a necessity for many creators going forwards, but it can't, at the end of the day, fully replace a human because, again, all that an AI is doing pattern recognition on human behavior and making a guess about what it thinks goes next, which may or may not be correct. So again, I think I am probably a bit more pessimistic about AI than a lot of people. I just want to, be cautious about it. I want to be honest about it rather than putting too much praise on it, putting, too much undeserved, unjustified, positivity out there. So that is all for this week's video. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't hesitate to subscribe, hit that notification bell, like the video, comment down below. Let me know what you think about AI. How do you think AI is going to change the future? Let me know what you would like to see in future videos. I will talk to you all next week. Have a good one.